Well, one day after a stop in Arizona, the president decided to hop one state over to New Mexico yesterday. And this is, I believe, an unofficial launch of the re-election bid for Joe Biden. Spent a couple of weeks on the beach. Now he's back in the saddle. No pun intended, as he's in Arizona. And by the way, he was speaking some authentic frontier gibberish that seemed like it was right out of Blazing Saddles over the last couple of days. He's touting what he perceives to be a great economy. This despite the fact that poll after poll after poll shows that you, the American people, don't believe that. You here in Kansas and Missouri do not believe that the economy is in good shape. But he's going to go around the country and attach his name to this economic moment, believing that's a good idea, which is not, and brag about Bidenomics. That's what he's going to do. He's been doing that for several months. Whoever thought that was a good idea should be fired, should go by the way of Bud Light marketing executives. I mean, the worst decision ever to put your name on this thing, but here we are. So it doesn't matter what poll you look at. I mean, CNN had a recent poll out saying that more than half of Americans believe the economy is still in a downturn and conditions are continuing to worsen. But the president wanted to let you know yesterday that he believes Bidenomics is working.
The problem was too many people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem.
What? Come again?
What are we talking about?
What is that even? Can somebody explain to me what that even means? What he's even trying to say there? Because I can't make sense of that for the life of me. The problem was too many people are working, or working people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem. That's reading word for word what he just said.
I think he's saying the quiet part out loud. He doesn't want people working so he can help them out. Right?
You know, Mark, that's an excellent point. If I was sinister, I would believe the same thing too. It's one of two things. Is he saying the quiet part out loud, or just can he not read a teleprompter?
The problem was too many people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem.
Or maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. Maybe he said the quiet part out loud, and then on top of that, he can't read the teleprompter. So, ding, ding. We've got both of them there for Gramps. Maybe he does want to create an environment where people are suddenly more reliant on the government, because that's, by the way, what inflation is doing. The people at the top, I mean, you know, they're not feeling the price of gas and the price of eggs and milk and things like that. You know, they're not all that worried about it. What does inflation do? Who does it impact the most? The middle class. The people that actually, you know, are in the middle of the country, working hard, trying to stretch their dollar as far as they can. You're the ones that end up getting hurt the most by these inflationary policies. And that's what we've seen over the last 3 years, right? We've lived through it. And if you need help, well, guess what? Here's the government who creates a problem by spending too much money and then is going to swoop in and save the day and fix the problem. Gosh, aren't they so swell? What a great group of guys.
Such a nice man.
And gals. They're just here to help out. They're just here to be your friend. So that was the president yesterday. And here he is as he starts talking about Bidenomics, giving a good whisper. He had to work in the whisper.
Unless you make more than $400,000 a year, your federal taxes aren't going to go up a single penny.
All right. In case you couldn't hear, he said he trotted out the old lie of unless you make at least $400,000 a year, your taxes aren't going to go up. Dude, your economic policies have crushed all of us from $400,000 down to $40,000. And by the way, those making $40,000 have felt much more pain under Bidenomics than the folks making $400,000 a year. Let's continue with the whisper that worked its way into yesterday's speech in New Mexico from Joe Biden.
And guess what? I did all this without raising anybody's taxes in the middle class.
Oh, yeah.
And one other little thing.
Oh, yeah.
during this process. I cut the federal budget in 2 years by $1.7 trillion.
There you go again, trotting out the old lines from Gramps. Didn't raise anybody's taxes in the middle class. Dude, inflation was 8-9% for a 6 to 7 month period last year. You crushed the middle class. Your economic policies crushed the middle class and are still crushing the middle class because guess what? Inflation doesn't magically go down. We're never going back to 2019 prices in this country. Never. That's the problem with inflation. Once the prices are now baked into the cake, they never go down. You just try to prevent them from going up at a faster rate, which is all you can do. But they're never coming back down. And we're going to get, by the way, an inflation report this morning at about 7:30 or so. So we'll have a live reaction to that one day after Joe trotted out the old, tired, stale group of lies with a good old whisper, John.
The first clip you played, my take was that he disagreed with his speech and was going to go off script right then.
That's where you think it was going.
Yeah, he definitively, well, that's not the problem. He was kind of mumbling along, and then he got some energy all of a sudden. And I thought, I think he's disagreeing, getting ready to run down the off-ramp on that.
Whatever it is, there's no way today he remembers what he said yesterday. That much we can agree upon. Whatever he said yesterday in New Mexico, he couldn't repeat it today if you asked him. Because he's got no idea. He's got handlers. He's got people that are kind of pointing him in what they perceive to be the right direction. You've got some very powerful people running a shadow government with Joe Biden as the face of it, and that's that. And in the meantime, he's going to try to convince you that the economy is doing great despite the fact that there's nothing to suggest the American people are buying it. And that's why attaching his name to the current economic times, the Bidenomics idea, has got to go down as one of the worst marketing ideas in White House history. And there have been some bad ones, but this is right up there. I'm telling you, to tie it all together, it's right up there with Bud Light in terms of awful marketing ideas of 2023. They should be studied for many, many years to come. Woo, boy, we've got a lot more from that speech we'll be getting to throughout the morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up as we approach 6:30, I was very surprised to see this social media post from the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. And I'll explain that. Also get into an idea that Mike Parson, Missouri's governor, can steal from Ron DeSantis coming up next. I would love to see Missouri Governor Mike Parson try to take a page, and the Missouri legislature try to take a page out of Ron DeSantis' playbook. So if you have not seen this story, Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, and of course presidential candidate, announced yesterday the suspension of an Orlando area state attorney, Monique Worrell, of Florida's 9th Judicial Circuit, for neglect of duty and incompetence, and accused her of pursuing lenient sentences and declining to prosecute certain charges and criminals. So Ron DeSantis was able to basically get her out of her job. Now, this is a great way for Florida, which is a red state, to combat woke prosecutors. And according to multiple reports, Monique Worrell was backed by a group tied to Democratic billionaire George Soros. She's allowed murderers and other violent offenders and dangerous drug traffickers to receive extremely reduced sentences and escape the full consequences of their criminal conduct. Now, in reading about this last night, I don't know if Missouri has the laws on the books to allow a governor to do what Ron DeSantis is doing. But whether it's prosecutors or judges or anybody else, this is a way for a red state to fight crime in its blue cities where they simply aren't willing to do the things that need to be done. Of course, they're obsessed over gun control and gun ordinances and things like that. but they don't want to do the actual work that needs to be done because of how they view criminals as victims. They view the criminals as the victims. They're victims of their circumstances. Therefore, you slap them on the wrist because, yes, they're committing crimes, but come on, they had a tough upbringing, or, they don't have a lot of money. Therefore, we should be lenient with criminals. The final straw for Monique Worrell, who has been suspended from her office as state attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit in the Orlando area, the final straw for Ron DeSantis was the following. This past weekend, Monique Worrell was at the center of a major controversy. Dayton VL was arrested in March of 2023, so 5 months ago, for sexual battery on a minor, as well as lewd molestation. That arrest was made while VL was on probation for another offense. That probation began in February of 2023. This individual was still let out on bond and ended up shooting 2 Orlando police officers in the last several days. This is not somebody who should have been on the streets. Let's go back to November of 2022. 17-year-old Lorenzo Larry shot and killed his pregnant girlfriend, DeShayla Ferguson. Lorenzo Larry had previously been arrested May of 2022 on several charges, including carrying a concealed firearm, possession of a firearm on school property, and criminal possession of a firearm by a minor. But he was released after all these arrests. Worrell's office did not act on any of these charges until after he killed his girlfriend and their unborn child. February 2023, 6 months ago, 19-year-old Keith Moses shot and killed a cameraman and a 9-year-old girl. He had a long history of arrests as a juvenile, including aggravated battery, assault, and grand theft. As recently as November 21, he was arrested for drug possession, but no charges were pursued. These are the kind of people that are being let back out onto the streets in major American cities, courtesy of prosecutors and state attorneys and everything else. So Ron DeSantis took matters into his own hands, and he said, you know what I'm going to do? I've got the ability to take you out of your job, so by golly, I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what he did. I don't know if Mike Parson can do something like this in Missouri, but dang, it would behoove the legislature to at least explore it, and it would behoove Governor Parson's office to explore it. Now, my guess is Mike Parson would not want to do something like this. He would say, well, if the people voted for Gene Peters Baker, they should be able to, suffer the consequences. And I get it to some degree. But in the end, right, cities don't supersede states. Cities don't exist without states. States have the power. The governor has the power. And I would love to see Missouri try to figure out a way to take this playbook from Florida and run with it. But then again, there's a lot of things I'd like to see Missouri take the playbook from Florida and run with, and they have failed to do. So that coming out of Florida, and boy, that could be used very effectively in Missouri if they can figure out a way to get it done. Meantime, here in Kansas City, I saw this right as I was set to call it a night last night. And at first I thought it was parody, but it's not. So the KC Police Department likes to highlight some of the, members of the force. And I think that's great, right? I think that's really good. It humanizes the officers that you might bump into on the streets. It's a good way to show that these guys and gals are just regular folks like you and I. I think that's good. But this one last night was bizarre to me. So they have a picture of one of their new officers. His name is Colin Hughes. Seems like a great guy. Officer Hughes. But here's the post on social media with a picture of Officer Hughes. It says here, the high-paying job as an IT manager brought home the money, but it left Colin Hughes unfulfilled. He felt his purpose was untapped. Already restless, Hughes saw what happened to George Floyd and knew it was time for change. Hughes became a police officer, graduating from the academy 9 months ago. Hughes said people need to have the trust in their worst moments that help is coming. Sometimes people just need someone to talk to. You never know how that will help them. Quickly, Hughes' life is changing. The Florida native is a father-to-be and a KCPD officer you might see dancing in the streets. Now, God bless Officer Hughes. There are not many people that are willing to step up and do the job today, and he is willing to do it. The guy leaves a high-paying IT job, and that's admirable. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He's trying to help the community. He's got fulfillment in life, and I think that's great. Seriously, I mean, we know there's a shortage of cops. People don't want to do the job, never mind in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's admirable that he's willing to do it. But I question why Kansas City, Missouri Police Department would say and brag about the fact that Hughes saw what happened to George Floyd and knew it was time for change. And if you're going to say that, if you're going to use George Floyd as an example of somebody joining the force and why that's a positive, wouldn't it be nice to have a line in there about how, I don't know, maybe Officer Hughes was also inspired by the way that Kansas City, Missouri police officers were mistreated on the plaza in the days after George Floyd's death? Right? I mean, I just, it feels like a slap in the face to anybody in law enforcement. An industry that's gone through hell the last 3 years, to say, you know, this guy was inspired to join us because of George Floyd. A narrative and a story that got completely spun out of control and has resulted in increased violence, defunding of the police in major American cities across the country. What happened to George Floyd has been a net negative by a mile for retail businesses, for poor people in urban communities, for law enforcement departments. It has been a net negative culturally, socially, across the board. Of course, it's sad, no doubt about it. But, you know, if I'm bragging about new officers, if you're going to put that where somebody was inspired to join the force because of George Floyd, I might add a line in there about how, you know, assuming it's true, which I hope it would be, the officer was also inspired by the way the police were mistreated. And by the way, the entire law enforcement community has been dragged through the mud by national and local media over the last 3 years. I might add that as well. I don't run the KCPD media department, of course. I'm not involved with the communications team by any stretch of the imagination. But that would be my 2 cents. Because if not, this just comes off as a slap in the face. 913-408-7710 as we approach 6:45 on a Thursday on KCMO Talk Radio. It's like this is the kind of stuff right now that's going on in the department. Like they met with Moms Demand Justice or whatever last week, the far left group on gun control. They got this stuff about, hey, look at this officer joined the force. He was inspired by George Floyd getting killed. Really? That's what inspired him ultimately to join the police force? I mean, it's like they're trying to prove something to people that are never going to trust them and are never going to want to be their friends. It's like when you're back in high school and you're trying to get in with the cool crowd. They're never going to accept you. The most radical elements in this town is never going to accept KCPD. So stop trying to prove to them that you can be one of them. You don't want to be one of them. You're not one of them. And that's okay. We're all better off that you're not one of them. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, we told you yesterday about what happened in Ohio and how that could apply to every election in the country come 2024. Why might that be the case, and what could that look like? We'll get to that coming up next on KCMO. Happy Thursday, 7 o'clock hour. Thanks for joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Hope your morning's off to a great start. So, I don't really care about this. Probably not the best way to start the segment, but I really don't care about what I'm going to talk about here over the next few minutes. I don't care one bit. But they think that I care. The media thinks that you care about this, but I don't. The headline here from thehill.com, America's white majority is aging out. And, you know, they're doing cartwheels over this. I just don't care. The article says here, in 2045, non-Hispanic white people will fall below half as a share of the overall U.S. population. Says Gen Z will be the last generation of Americans with a white majority, according to the census data. The nation's so-called majority minority arrived with Generation Alpha, those born since about 2010. I didn't know that, by the way, that the new generation was Generation Alpha. So, Mark, all our kids are alphas, even though they're all girls. We got 4 girls who are alphas.
Seems odd.
It also seems on brand for the world we live in these days. I didn't know that. Boy, Generation Alpha. I wish I was Generation Alpha. Come on now, let's go.
We should have started at Gen A instead of Gen X.
Yeah.
We kind of ran out of letters there. Huh?
We did.
XYZ,
Millennial Z, Alpha. Okay, so we got Gen Alpha, those born since 2010. They'll be the last ones with a majority white United States of America. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, and all right. I mean, whatever. America's always been the greatest melting pot in the history of mankind. I don't see the big deal with that. Now, from a political perspective, there's this perception that as America becomes majority minority, that somehow, the Republican Party is going to cease to exist. And the data just doesn't back it up. You have seen over the last couple of election cycles, more and more, especially Latino Americans, move in mass to the Republican Party as they realize culturally they have far more in common with traditional conservative American ideals than they do the Democratic Party. I mean, many of them are folks of faith. They come to this country. They're leaving countries, by the way, where socialism and communism is alive and well. They know what that can do to a culture and a country. They flee that. They come here, and they're culturally more conservative as is, and they want to, live the American dream, just like many of our ancestors have. That's what they want. That's why they're here. So a lot of them were duped to vote Democrat, but they have shifted their way of thinking, and that is shown in the polling over the last couple of elections. So a lot of people who are writing this story over the last day or two are writing it from a political perspective to say once the country is no longer majority white, that is a bad sign for a Republican Party and a good sign for a Democratic Party. And I don't see it that way. I don't. I see a Democratic Party that is right now appealing to the very upper echelon of high society and culture, and then those who at the very bottom, and not only those at the bottom, but those at the bottom who also don't really want to do any work. Those who just want to live off the government. That's who I see the party catering towards. And then I see everybody kind of in the middle between the 20-yard line, so to speak, who are like, that ain't working for me. That's not what I want. I want something else. Now, I'm not suggesting the Republican Party's done a good job of any of this. They haven't. They are their own worst enemy, and they're complete clowns too sometimes as a party. But at least there's a lot of people between the 20-yard lines from an economic perspective who are like, what you guys are selling isn't what I need right now and is not in the best interest of my family.
Yeah, maybe when they get here, they actually absorb it in, maybe these people are like more faith-based in other countries than here. We seem to be losing that by latest polls. And so once they come in and go, wait a minute, this isn't jiving with my morals here. It's like, hey, here's your free phone. Come on in, all right? Hey, can you help me? Nah, make yourself scarce, kid. I don't want to see. I got some more phones to hand out here, right? And once they can't get a hold of these people and they start to go, hey, this doesn't line up with my spiritual beliefs at all.
No, it's not working for me.
Yeah.
So here's how thehill.com writes this, because they're doing cartwheels over it, whereas I'm just like, I don't care. If you want to come to the country, I don't care what you look like. I want you to live the American dream and have the American values that so many have possessed for generations that has made America the greatest superpower in the history of mankind. So anyway, thehill.com writes, some scholars contend the numbers are wrong, or at least misleading, and that the looming ascent of a majority-minority America is a myth. America's white majority and its numbered days is a lightning rod topic, given the nation's history of slavery and enduring patterns of discrimination against minorities and immigrants. What? Wait, America's white majority is a lightning rod topic? With who? Given the nation's history of slavery? and enduring patterns of discrimination against minorities and immigrants. I'm trying to figure out who this is a lightning rod topic against. It's like they're wishing something and writing about something as they want it to be, but as it is not. I have not had a single conversation on this show, on this text line, in the real world that's like, have you seen the headlines the last 2 days? Oh, man, the white people are going to be a minority by 2045. What are we going to do in this country?
Well, I was in school in the 60s and 70s, and we talked about the event. This would come, assuming everything. We might have assumed people come in a different manner through different doors, but it was always prognosticated that this was a possibility.
And it was never
like shocking.
No, exactly. It's been talked about for years. But now the latest numbers coming out, 2045. And then it says here, demographers and economists celebrate the nation's growing diversity as vital to a prosperous future. Huh? Now, that I don't get either. I don't get this notion that this is a lightning rod topic. I also don't understand how it's vital to a prosperous future. Now, I think it's good if all else is equal. I think it's fine. But in the end, I just want people who want to come here and work hard and live the American dream and contribute to society and do those things. I don't really care what color you are. And there's plenty of people of every skin color who are bums looking for a handout. I mean, we know that to be true. So they're wanting this conversation, to go in a direction that it's not actually going in on Main Street in Realville. Mike is in Kansas City. He is of Latino descent. All right, Mike, what do you got for me on this one?
Woke, white, elitist nonsense. This is they sit around in their college lounges. They all talk about that. They're, families that probably came over from Mayflower, and they're, tenured professor during the day and Antifa at night. They all talk about stuff like this. They have no idea what the reality is on this. I know people from sub-Saharan Africa. I know people from Asia. I know people from all over that have immigrated to this country, and they come here because they want to become part of a middle class that was denied them in their home country. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, my parents were actually white when they came here, and the government reclassified them in the 70s as Latino. So, they're making these things up. And every time we hear this, it angers my dad tremendously when he hears stuff like this. Mm. And, back in 1840, the majority of the people in the country were of Irish, Scottish descent. Then they became German. Then the Irish came in.
And that's exactly right. And this has been happening since the beginning of time. There's always been a wave of a new country, new people coming into America. And that's what makes America great, right? People coming here, not because of where they're from, but coming here with the same purpose, wanting to pursue all that America has to offer. I don't much care what America looks like in 2045. If it's a majority-minority country, great. If we're all Americans and moving in the same direction and have the same vision for what made this country great and what will continue to make this country great, and that's individual freedoms and liberties, then awesome. It's awesome. I don't much care. 913-408-7710. But they think that people like me and many like you are seeing headlines like this and crying ourselves to sleep every night. And it's just not true. 913-408-7710. Welcome you in at 7:15. Pete Mundo on a Thursday morning on KCMO. Well, some breaking news at 7:22 up in Platte County. There's been a lot happening up in Platte County the last few days. None of it good, at least not in the news. Looks like there was an officer-involved shooting in Platte County early this morning off 92 Highway near 45 Spur and Stillings Road. It happened overnight, just getting reported here in the last hour or so. Police say it started as a domestic dispute in Leavenworth. Police pursuing a suspect. The chase then crossed over into Platte County. Gunfire was exchanged, and the suspect was shot, taken to a nearby hospital. Platte County confirms the officer was not injured in the exchange of fire. Leavenworth police are investigating the pursuit investigation while Platte County investigates the shooting. So authorities are asking drivers to avoid Stillings Road. They have it shut down for investigations if you are up in that area. So please do note that this morning as you get going here on KCMO Talk Radio. Meantime, also in Platte County, bunch of burglaries being reported up in rural Platte County, north near the Buchanan County borders. So there's been several rural resident burglaries in Platte County, according to the Sheriff's Department up there. Sheriff's Office saying last night to KCTV5 that within the past few days, they've seen a drastic increase in burglaries, with burglars focusing more on outbuildings, vehicles, on properties as well. Between Platte and the areas of southern Buchanan County, there's been approximately 20 burglaries reported. Most of them, the Sheriff's Office said, have been east of Dearborn all the way up to the south end of St. Joe in Buchanan County. So that's the KCTV5 story. Platte County, man. Lots happening up there. I know when I was up in Platte County for a speaking event, I don't know what that was, 2 or 3 months ago. I know a lot of folks in Platte County are getting worried with, more population growth up there. Crime is increasing. I get it, but, know this. You got a good prosecutor up there. You got a good sheriff's department up there. And as long as you have that, I'd feel pretty good about Platte County. But, yes, that is going on up there, and just make a note of that if you're up in that part of town. Meantime, yesterday, the President of the United States was in New Mexico. He's on this West Coast swing. He was at the Grand Canyon 2 days ago. If you missed that was quite a gem.
The Grand Canyon, one of the Earth's 9 wonders of the world. Literally. Think of that. It's amazing.
Well, I literally thought of that, and it's not amazing because, well, there are not 9 wonders of the world. There are 7. They're man-made, and there are 7 natural wonders of the world, of which, yes, the Grand Canyon is one, but it's literally not true, and it's not amazing. But thank you for that, Joe. So a day after the Grand Canyon fiasco, he decides to pop over to New Mexico, where the president brags about how great the economy's doing. And if you could help me interpret this one, I would greatly appreciate it.
The problem was too many people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem.
What
are we talking about?
I still can't interpret that. I've been listening to that clip. I've probably listened to that clip a dozen times since about 5:30 this morning. The problem was too many people are working, or working people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem. Can we speak English? Can we make some sense? Like, I don't even know anymore. Is that what was in the prompter? Is he speaking off the cuff? I don't know what's what. All I know is those sentences don't work together and don't make any sense. The problem was too many people are working. So we have past tense, present tense, talking about people working. That doesn't make any sense. Or working people are working, making too much money? What? That's not the problem. My goodness. In about 150 years, they're going to be like, the American people were that dumb? They elected that? What? They put that guy in charge of the country? What the heck's going on here?
Who was it that was saying Bidenomics? People have twice as many jobs now?
Yes.
Right.
Babylon Bee had that headline.
That was? Okay.
White House brags about people having twice as many jobs as 1 year ago. Maybe that's what he's trying to get at here.
There we go.
Because nothing else makes an ounce of sense to me on this. But think about it. We got 15 months to go, and this West Coast swing that he's on, bragging about the economy and doing photo shoots at the Grand Canyon. By the way, don't trip. Sandbag to your left. Watch out. It's really the launch of a re-election campaign in large part, unofficially, of course. But he gets to do it on the government dime and gets to do it on, you and I paying for it. That's what this is. I mean, the guy was off for a couple of weeks. He was at Rehoboth Beach, and then he's now Grand Canyon, New Mexico, work his way back to D.C. later in the month. But, man, this is a bad rollout. Literally not making any sense. And then there was this, and I don't know what this is all about. Somebody explain to me what the heck's going on here.
Senator Heinrich, I tell you what, I'm glad I was a flanker back. I'm glad I didn't have you on the other side as a tight end. But good to see you, man. Thank you, and thank your whole family. Good to meet you.
Hell, flanker? Tight ends? What's going on here? What is happening? And, you know, Martin Heinrich has been the U.S. Senator, one of the U.S. Senators, Democrat in New Mexico, for the last 10 years or so. But, I mean, what is he getting at here? Martin Heinrich's a big guy. Joe wants to brag about his football career from back in the day. I mean, I'm not quite understanding what exactly the pitch is. But you know what? That just means it's another day that ends in Y. You want to know how jacked up the justice system is? This is a perfect example for you. Good morning. Happy Thursday as we approach the weekend. Thanks for joining us on KCMO. So the name Henry Ruggs, remember him? Raiders, wide receiver, big star at Alabama. I got that right, Mark, right? He went to Alabama.
Yep.
Crimson Tide guy. So he was sentenced yesterday to at least 3 years in a Nevada prison for killing a woman in a fiery crash while driving a sports car drunk at speeds up to 156 miles an hour on a city street. This was nearly 2 years ago. It was November 2nd, 2021. He was cut by the Raiders while he was still hospitalized after the crash. He's now 24 years old. And the collision killed Tina Tintor and her dog Max, and injured Ruggs' passenger, his fiancée, and mother of their daughter. Guy's drunk driving through Vegas at 156 miles an hour and crashes into somebody, kills a lady and her dog, and he's going to prison for 3 years. And, you know, I'm just sitting here and I'm saying to myself, okay. Now, it was a plea deal, all right, because I guess the one thing that prosecutors were concerned about in this case, if it went to trial, is that Ruggs was not administered a field sobriety test following the crash, and his defense attorneys argue that Ruggs' blood alcohol test was improperly obtained at the hospital. So that may have caused some hurdles for the prosecution in this case, had it gone to trial. So it doesn't go to trial. He gets a plea deal, and he's going to be in prison for, it might even be less, right? When you figure in good behavior and things like that. I mean, gosh, the guy's driving 156 miles an hour and kills a lady and her dog, and he might be in prison for, I don't know, 18, 24 months, something like that. So compare that to the other big sentencing of the week, and that is Tu Thao. Tu Thao is a former Minneapolis police officer who held back bystanders while his colleague restrained George Floyd over 3 years ago now. Tu Thao, who had already been convicted in federal court of violating George Floyd's civil rights, was the last of four former officers facing judgment in state court in George Floyd's killing. Now, Tu Thao, it's not a perfect apples-to-apples comparison, but he rejected a plea agreement. And instead of going to trial, he let the county judge decide the verdict. And turns out he's going to prison for a longer period of time than Henry Ruggs. That's right. A cop who stood there and held back people in the George Floyd incident is going to spend more time, most likely in prison. He got 5 years. He's going to spend more time in prison than a former Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver who was driving drunk at 156 miles an hour and killed a lady and her dog. Does that make any sense to you? Just, I understand. It's different states. It's different prosecutions. It's different judges. It's different defense attorneys. I get all that. But in America in 2023, does that make any sense to you? That a guy who did what Henry Ruggs did will spend less time in prison than a cop who not only should not be going to prison for 5 years, should not be going to prison at all. You know, Derek Chauvin was convicted by a jury of his peers. He was the guy who was actually, arresting George Floyd at the time. He went to prison. Jury of his peers decided upon that. This guy, Tu Thao, the other Minneapolis police officer who was brand new to the job, what is he doing while that's going on with George Floyd? He's holding back people in the crowd. And that's where a guy like Tu Thao is damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. What's he supposed to do? Is he supposed to not hold back the crowd and let the crowd kind of get involved with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd? I mean, that would have been incredibly irresponsible. That would have resulted in a slew of lawsuits if he had not held people back in that situation and said, hey, stand back. I got to protect the scene here. That's what you have to do. And I keep hearing this argument about, well, Tu Thao should have done something when George Floyd was saying he can't breathe. Yeah, because George Floyd was the first guy in the middle of an arrest to claim he could not breathe, right? I mean, stop living in this 2020 hindsight world as if you've got all the information that's going to come out in the moment while it's transpiring. You don't live in that kind of a world. That's not the real world. This guy shouldn't spend a day in prison. Instead, he's going to the can for 5 years. Henry Ruggs will probably be out in 18 months. He'll be on an NFL roster by 2025. Wouldn't shock me one bit. He's only 24 years old. He's going to be 26. I mean, Mark, he was a pretty big stud back in college, right? He may get another chance. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. He was one of the fastest guys to come out in the NFL draft. He was one of those guys from Tua.
Oh, was he on the Tua Tagovailoa teams?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was a speedster.
Mm-hmm.
It would not shock me one bit if Henry Ruggs is on an NFL roster in 2 years. Meantime, this former Minneapolis cop, he'll be watching Henry Ruggs catch touchdown passes from prison during the 2025 NFL season. That's my prediction. And it tells you all you need to know about how jacked up the justice system is right now in this country. It's just crazy. 913-408-7710 on KCMO. Let's go to the phones. Ron's in Midtown. What's up, Ron?
Hey, how's it going, Pete?
All right, Ron, what's up?
Well, I remember the case of the I guess he was, at that point, he had a contract and was driving crazy and stupid, and I don't think alcohol, whether or not he was found, intoxicated, should make a difference, given the fact that I don't believe alcohol entices one to drive as fast as he did. He was just being stupid. But as it relates to both incidents, Tao, what I think is disingenuous is how you state with Derek Chauvin that Tao, that he was restraining him. No, he killed him. And Tao was an accessory to that, given that he didn't stop him from doing it. Now,
how is he supposed to know? And I'm not going to relitigate the whole Derek Chauvin, George Floyd thing.
Because everybody that he was holding back.
We also know that George Floyd had enough fentanyl in his body to kill a horse. We know that as well, right? I mean, that's a fact.
Okay.
And if you're Tu Thao, if you're this officer, and you know that your partner or one of the guys in the department is, yes, trying to arrest George Floyd, but then you're also in charge. Your job in that moment is to secure the scene in the immediate area.
Who said that was his job?
I mean, that's protocol, right? What's he supposed?
That's what he was doing. But at the same time, are you not supposed to listen to those that you're there to protect? They sat there and said over again that he was killing him. And
so random people who are causing
and one of them was actually a paramedic.
Okay. So, and how does he know that in the moment? Random people who are causing a scene around George Floyd. Random people creating a circle around George Floyd are supposed to now be listened to as medical professionals instead of him doing his job and trying to secure a scene of an arrest?
Well, for one, they weren't surrounding. Everybody was on the sidewalk, possibly a little bit in the street. But at the same time, to not address, if it doesn't mean that much to you that you believe all these people are lying when they say that he's killing him, then guess what? Go to jail, because you're an accessory to what your
so what you're saying, Ron, just so I'm clear, is that cops are supposed to listen to random people on the streets in the middle of an arrest. Is that what you're telling me?
I would say this.
Yes or no?
If I was an officer, and yes. If someone said you're killing him, then yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I know. Thank you, Ron. I know that next time I see any arrest going on in town, I will pull over and I will scream at the cops, "You're killing the man or the woman." and they better stop what they're doing right away. That will be great for the safety of the public in any community, Kansas City or anywhere else. That sounds like a great way to have law and order and to have a civilized society. Outstanding. Everyone's a pro. Everyone's an expert when it comes to law and order, apparently. Except for the people that actually do the job.
Just shoot him in the elbow.
Yeah. I think Joe wants him to shoot people in the knee, right? Or the ankle. The ankle. That's what it is.
The ankle.
The ankle. Yeah, just shoot him in the ankle. 913-408-7710. You cannot, unless you want the inmates to run the asylum, to use that example. That's not how law enforcement can do its job. I mean, come on. We can't relitigate this thing with the 2020 hindsight that we have right now. And if you want to defund the police, well, guess what? This is how it's getting done. By putting guys like Officer Thao in prison for 5 years. Who the heck's going to do this job? When all you do is stand there, try to secure a scene in Minneapolis while people are starting to surround George Floyd as he's being arrested, and you end up getting 5 years in prison. Who's going to do this job in any major American city right now? 913-408-7710. It's 8:15 on a Thursday morning. Jeez, what's going on over here in Independence? Did you see this story? Independence police are looking for two teenagers after an attack at a Walgreens. Happened off 39th Street and Nolan Road last week. We got the video of it as well. You got a lady in her 60s who was working at the Walgreens, hitting her head on the concrete while one of the teens is yelling in the background. The other one's swinging punches at this 60-year-old Walgreens employee. You know, I got a CVS near me, and it's a job that seems to, I don't know if appealing is the right word, but it's a fit for those who just are looking to put some extra money in their pockets to subsidize their Social Security, I would imagine. I mean, you know, there's a lady in my CVS who's probably, God bless her, she's probably 75-ish, maybe older, and she's as sweet as could be. Always helpful, because I walk into CVS, I don't know where anything is. And I know that it's not the guy thing to do to ask, but I ask because to me, the most valuable thing in my life is time. And I don't let ego get in the way of time. So I know that guys are always like, I will never ask to find anything in the grocery store or at CVS. I don't care. I walk in there and I just look for somebody to ask. I'm not looking to impress anybody. That's just my style.
Well, that's just step one.
Yeah.
When I worked retail, you were supposed to know the store anymore.
Well, I will say.
You know, so you're lucky if you get a correct answer.
I will say this. 75-year-old lady at my CVS, she knows where everything is in that store. Every nook and cranny. Yes.
To your point.
And she's great. Now, sometimes I think I offend her when I say I want to do self-checkout because she's looking for something to do to keep busy. But I just, give me the self-checkout 10 out of 10 times. So I know that, you know, those are a lot of the folks who oftentimes will work in a place like Walgreens or CVS. So here in Independence, what apparently happened is this lady in her 60s, Walgreens employee, notices and alleges that one of these teens or a couple of these teens had not paid for their items, notably a pair of sunglasses. And that's when things went downhill quickly. Here's the report from Fox 4.
One punch after another, a teen is seen hitting a Walgreens employee. Oh, no. The woman in her 60s falls, hitting her head on the concrete, while another teen is yelling in the background.
Well, I was shocked. I mean, you know, to see something like that.
Jack Taylor says this quick video caught on camera is actually the end of an altercation.
And it's kind of disturbing to watch.
According to a police report, it all started when the two teens in the video were in Walgreens with another teen and adult. Here's a screen grab of them walking in the store. One of the teens does not have on sunglasses. But the police report says when all four women walked out of the store, the teen without sunglasses had a pair on. The police report goes on to say the Walgreens employee told the adult in the group she needed to pay for the glasses, but the woman refused. The two teens in the video came back in the store. The teen wearing shorts grabbed a Sprite and sprayed it in the employee's face. When the woman blocked the Sprite, the teen hit her, and the other teen, yelling in the video, jumped in. The teen in shorts jumps in again, punching the employee multiple times.
To have it happen to an employee and to have it happen to a senior employee is even more so.
Oh, man. I mean, it takes a certain type of scumbag to start swinging punches at a 60-year-old lady after you knock her over and her head hits the concrete. Now, thankfully, she's going to be okay, but it does take a certain type of lowlife to do that. And, yeah, I do wonder, and we don't know yet what's going to happen here, but we've had a lot of cases like this, like the Lululemon in California, where you had an employee try to stop people who were stealing from the store, and they got fired. There was another prominent business where that happened lately in another part of the country. God willing, this lady will not lose her job. She obviously does not deserve to lose her job. But you're seeing now so many folks in retail having to deal with this. Fox 4 had these numbers last night. Retail crime, violent crime in stores. In 2017, there were about 15,000 incidents of violent crime reported to the FBI. In 2021, that number doubled to 30,000. In 4 years, the number of violent criminal incidents in retail stores doubled from 2017 to 2021. Why do you think that might be? Do you think, a world and a culture of victimization, lawlessness, defund the police, you deserve things, you don't have to earn things, you're a victim because of fill in the blank? Do you think that kind of mentality that has permeated American culture over the last, especially 3 years, do you think that could lead to a world where we see a doubling of violent crime in retail stores over a 4-year period, John?
That's one side of the sword. Perhaps the woman was maybe fit. What if she boxes both of them upside the head? Then it'd be racism.
Yeah, well, that's true, too.
Right? So it's a double-edged sword.
Yes. If she were to, God forbid, defend herself and fight back.
And be successful in doing so.
Yeah. Well, how dare you defend yourself against those criminals, right?
You knock one of them out and the other one runs.
Yeah. Then you're the bad guy.
Yep.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You can't win in these situations, sad to say. But, this is right over in Independence, by the way. It's not a national story. It will be. If Walgreens fires this poor lady because she got in the way and, employees are not supposed to get in the way of people stealing from stores. If she gets fired, if there's anything on that front that happens, this will be a national story by the end of the week. Well, maybe next week. It might take a little bit. Next week, this will be a national story. So I hope that Walgreens does the right thing. Not only keeps her employed, but geez, gives her a medal or something. Can she get $50 in store credit? Right? Something. Can we do something for this lady at Walgreens? Maybe give her one of those receipts that are 6 feet long where you got 27 different rebates on them. How about that? Something? 913-408-7710. We'll get to you on this, plus Mark Falter on the reaction to the inflation numbers in 15 minutes on KCMO. Hey, speaking of facts and stories, the rest of the Kansas City media won't. I got to give Fox 4 credit for doing the story here on the teens on video attacking a Walgreens employee, an old lady in her 60s, in the last couple of days. 39th and Nolan Road, not many other people had that. I'm trying to see who else in town did that story. Oh, Channel 9 did it. All right, let's see. Channel 9 did it. Tony's Kansas City had it as well. Let's see if Woke 41 had it. Just going to do a quick search here. See if Woke 41 had the story. No, do not see it making the cut at Woke 41. I know that's not a shocker to you at all.
Talk about a bombshell.
And then, but okay. 2 out of 4 is not bad. Take that on the TV side of things. That's pretty good. Kansas City Star, forget it. That's not going to fit their narrative. They're going to stay far away from that. No way, no way. They got to talk about and write about some pizza Patrick Mahomes is eating up in St. Joe this week, so that's not going to make their cut. Just like they couldn't talk about and barely had any reporting on Jonah Oswald, the Fairway cop who was shot and killed on Sunday morning. And then, I can't get over that from yesterday. Kansas City Star 2 nights ago has nothing whatsoever on the officer who died in the line of duty as of Tuesday night. I screenshotted it. I put it up on Twitter. 12 stories on the homepage Tuesday night. Not one having to do with the fallen officer, Officer Oswald. Leaves behind a wife and 2 young kids, 29-year-old guy shot and killed at a Quick Trip by a criminal on Sunday morning in Mission. And then the audacity, the stones, the idiocy of one of their reporters, Mike Hendricks, to drop into the mentions and tell me, Pete, the Star has had multiple stories on this and will continue to follow up. He writes here, the latest was posted 20 minutes ago. You pick one snapshot of the homepage last night and imply that we don't care. I call that a cheap shot. And then I sent them back another screenshot that showed they wrote a story yesterday morning on the fundraiser started to help the family of the Fairway officer killed after the Mission shooting, Officer Oswald. They wrote it yesterday morning, which was 20 hours after everybody else in Kansas City media wrote about it. 20 hours later. I know they're short-staffed there, but 20 hours later, they read a story about, oh, yeah, by the way, here's a fundraiser for the officer's family. Meantime, what did they have? Fundraisers for Ralph Yarl plastered their homepage for the better part of 2 weeks, which is okay. I'm okay with raising money for Ralph Yarl. I have no problem with that. Ralph Yarl deserved to have a fundraiser too. But my goodness, you got a fundraiser here for a cop's family who was killed in the line of duty in town, right in Mission, and you write it 20 hours later than everybody else, and it kind of got a mention on the homepage yesterday morning. Please, keep digging there at the Star. They show their true colors and values on this story with what you prioritize, and what you don't prioritize every single day. That was a bad job by Mike Hendricks because we got the receipts. And needless to say, he had no response to that. Although Brad Cooper, who is the editor and publisher of the Sunflower State Journal, he jumped in the mix. Brad comes in off the top rope and says, the Star frequently gets their State House stories from my publication at the Sunflower State Journal, which he does a very good job with. Subscription-based, but if you're like a nerd on what's going on in Topeka, it's a good subscription to have.
The Star offers a free service I take full advantage of, and that is that they block you if you don't subscribe, so that's why I don't read it, and they take care of it for me.
Well, sometimes in this job, you got to do the dirty work, John, and I'm willing to do the dirty work.
I know you have to go up and under and around and over the wall and stuff.
Yep.
I'm kind of a tunnel rat in that way.
Well, lucky you. Lucky you. Oh, gosh, keep rubbing it in there, John, would you? Okay, you got to love community notes from Twitter, X, whatever they're calling it these days. Community notes is what gets put up on a tweet when somebody is just lying. And Cori Bush over in St. Louis, she's the AOC of Missouri. She got community noted yesterday. She put up on Twitter yesterday morning, today is the 9th anniversary of Mike Brown's killing. Of course, Ferguson. He would be alive today if the institutions of racism and white supremacy were eradicated. He should be alive today, writes Cori Bush. We will never forget. We will continue to fight for justice and accountability. Well, credit to Twitter and the community notes, which tagged this onto the tweet. The U.S. DOJ, remember, Obama's Department of Justice, concluded, based on the available evidence, that Officer Darren Wilson acted lawfully and that the evidence and witness statements do not corroborate allegations of any wrongdoing in this case. And there is a link to justice.gov on the shooting death of Michael Brown by Ferguson, Missouri police officer Darren Wilson. So Cori Bush, what she put up there is a lie. Yeah, he should be alive. He shouldn't have stolen from a convenience store and then attacked a cop. I completely agree. Mike Brown should be alive today. And the easiest way for Mike Brown to be alive is not steal from a convenience store and then attack a police officer. That's a great way to stay alive. I can't guarantee you're going to stay alive, but if you don't rob stores and don't attack cops, I like your chances on staying alive better than if you rob convenience stores and attack cops. And just think about how, the narrative's going to be next year on the 10-year anniversary of Mike Brown's death. They're going to treat this like it's the 10-year anniversary of 9/11 in some parts of this country. For crying out loud. I don't want to overstate it. I hope to be dead wrong about that. But, Cori Bush did it yesterday for the 9-year. Imagine what the 10-year is going to look like. Sheesh. 913-408-7710. That's also the text line here on KCMO Talk Radio on a Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us. Jeez. Pete, don't forget about the Eric Garner killing by police in New York City for selling cigarettes. All that stuff that happened around that time. In many ways, it was kind of laying the foundation for what was to come the last few years when it came to trying to destroy law enforcement in major American cities. Those incidents laid the foundation for what we've now lived through, where most major American cities have seen decreases in cops across the board. Not just because of defunding policies in some cases, but also because you can't get anyone to do the job. Because these guys are doing the job and they're doing it with one hand tied behind their back. That's what's going on in too many of these instances. And they don't want to be the next guy or gal who finds themselves, a household name in American culture. And they're literally seconds away every single day from that happening. And then what happens? Crime increases in all these major American cities, including here in Kansas City, and people are less safe every single day as a result. Meantime, on the financial front, we got numbers this morning on inflation, 3.2% year over year, slightly below the 3.3 expectations. All right, I'm glad it's not 8% like a year ago, but you're 3% above the 8% number from last year. That's not good. Real wages are down over the last 3 years under this president. That's the number. Since Biden took office, prices are up 16.6%. Real wages are down 3%. That's not good. On top of that, you have multiple banks getting downgraded yesterday, including Kansas City-based Commerce Bank. What does that mean? How concerned should we be? We're 15 years removed, of course, from the Great Recession, which was triggered by banking issues. Is this that? I don't want to overstate it. I'm not looking to cause any type of hysteria where there doesn't need to be. But Mark Falter knows the answers to that. He will answer that next on KCMO.